So this is our home learning group, and what we do is we teach online lessons for students if they are self-isolating. So what is good is we offer a full timetable where students can make sure they keep up to speed with what we're doing in class, and they get the same experience from the same teachers delivering the same material. So our technology is set up to allow us to do that quite well, and there are some elements to the home lessons that actually mean we can interact even more than we would do perhaps with classes. So that's a really good thing. So we're able to keep going. So in the minute we've got George and Chris at home today who are self-isolating. So we've got the home learning group where we can share information and work that we might be doing during the day. So that's all good for them to get on with stuff, but we're always here to help them as well in the lesson. So I might, for example, be delivering a lesson on something like young modulus. So it's quite easy for me to be able to share my presentation so I can show them exactly what we're doing. So I could go like this, share my presentation, and we could do something. So it might be the case that if we were looking at young modulus work, then students will be able to see exactly what I've got in terms of my PowerPoint. I can make sure that we can go through things together. And what's good as well is at home we can do the questions together. So we can have things like Jamboards, which is one of our things that we have through Google Suite that we use. So on a Jamboard, I can share this with our students. So our students at home, George and Chris, we've got this. So why don't you gentlemen then, so if you want to answer on this side, George, and you can answer on that side, Chris, you can have a go at that question. Okay, so what's good about this is I can actually see what they're doing, and then we can look to do some improvements as we go along. So we might all have different colours. I'll have to wait and see what these boys start off with. We've got the Jamboard, and obviously they can start answering the questions. So they can see what I'm showing them on from the presentation. And George is off. So George is right. He always changes his mind. So what's good is I can actually see what they're doing as well. So just like you would do standing next to a student, you can actually see where they're going. They can also see what each other's doing as well. And so, for example, George might be very proud he's writing the full explanation, and Chris might be very pleased he's doing abbreviations to save some time. Who knows? So we can see where they're going with that. So that's quite nice. So I can obviously, if I'm suitably motivated, I could always try and race them as well. So I could have a go as well, and I don't like the way they write it. So we can talk about why potentially the way that I'm doing it might be a little bit quicker with a little bit less going on. But that's the way I would do it, but they're off on their own merry way. And I'm very pleased to see that working out area is something that's happening here, so that's good. I can see George is on the same route. So now the interesting thing is what numbers they're going to use. So I'm looking very carefully at the number that George is about to write there, or Chris is about to write there, because that's a common mistake we have in physics. But what's quite nice is I can spot these things and we can do something about it. So Chris is looking at the, oh yeah, so there you go, that's good. So see, I can see straight away there, he's done the radius, not the diameter, and he's converted it correctly into the units, which will be putting it into millimeters, and then he's obviously remembering to square it too. So I can actually see all the right things are going on there. George has done it as well, so he's put 2 times 10 to the minus 3, so that tells me it's 2 millimeters. And George, I'm going to tell you right now, George, have a look. Your diameter, yes, you've put there, you've halved the diameter by the looks of it to get 2. Is that the right thing to do? What's the diameter?
I should have done 40. The diameter's 0.4.
Okay, so what's the radius you're going to write down?
On it. Oh, if you hang on, there it is. Or just do 2 times 10 to the power of minus 4.
Yeah, but you're absolutely fine to write it as it was, but that's fine. So there you go. And so if I'm a bit clever and use my highlight thing, I can do stuff and then it disappears, which I should be doing in the first place. But there we go. So it's quite good. So you can actually see what's going on. So there's Chris. So Chris's answers appearing now as we speak, which is all very good. And it's just a really good tool we can use. Don't forget to write your units, Chris.
Yep.
So what's young modulus measured in? Okay, you'll also see that you've both got slightly different answers. And if you have a little look, Chris, look at your young modulus formula at the start. Do you think you've got the formula exactly right? Have a look. Doing this so you can do collaborative work and actually work together, and we can see what we're all doing. So it's essentially, in that way, even better than being in a class, because I can look at more than one student's work at once, and we can work on things together, and it's a really good way of problem solving. So it's really useful. George can also share things like his Onenote, which is where we do a lot of our work to avoid having to hand out paper in classes. So you can see here, this is the homework task that George did for me. So it's all being marked, you see. And what's nice as well is when you're talking about stuff now, I can see what George is doing in terms of his amendments. And also, let's say if I was marking it with him,
Okay, I could be looking at this, and we can be talking about his work, and we can talk about things. But as I'm actually doing it, if I'm looking at the bit that George is working on, you can see that if I'm looking at his homework table, and I'm really loving just how he's laid out all his work and everything else, and he's got his nice things. So see up at the top here, I can actually tick things, and they just appear. So I can actually see there what's going on. So like for a minute ago, we were looking at the work. Obviously, Chris didn't include the original length first time, but he got that one better. But you can see that you can highlight things and just talk about things. So it's really handy. So that's another way that is very, very useful for us to use our work that's in school and at home is through this OneNote system. So it's a really powerful tool, and you can get feedback in there, and you can add to it and change things together, which is another bonus of how we use our equipment. So Chris, how was the home learning lessons for you? What's your thoughts on the whole experience?
I mean, I find it really sort of useful in terms of, you get a lot sort of more in-depth teaching in terms of like it's more one-to-one. But obviously that sort of element of social life in person is gone, which is a downside. But I mean, I've got George with me, and so
yeah, I suppose the social element's gone, but I don't think it's that big of an impact because I suppose all the teachers are quite nice. So no, because you are.
So you two have had some tests recently, and you hadn't been in school for some of that time. How did you feel your test preparation was, and how the tests went compared to maybe how you might have felt if you were in school? Do you think you've missed out on anything, or do you think it was okay?
I don't think I missed out on anything.
Yeah, I think I did the same as I would.
And the online lessons as well are quite specialised to what we want. Obviously, you've got to cover like certain content, but then if there's any questions, like it's never like brushed over. There's always plenty of time to ask and get like any queries sort of answered.
Okay. So in essence, really, it's obviously not the perfect situation, but you feel like you've not missed out on too much by at least educationally doing the stuff at home.
Yeah.
No, definitely not. I think like in some ways it's been better because there's only the two of us and like the one teacher. It is like what we need rather than what like the whole class needs. But even in school, there's only like 15 in the class. That's still a lot better than what it was like last year.
Yeah, that's true.
Class of 30. So it's been good.
Fair enough.
Definitely haven't missed out on anything though.
Good. I think the things like Jamboards as well is just really flexible in terms of what we can do. So we're pleased with it anyway. So I'm glad it's working for you.
I love good Jamboards. The Jamboards are great.
You keep telling me to do them. They're great. I love them.